over the past few years, a lot of researchers have resorted to crowdsourcing platforms. And it turns out that this has become quite a critical infrastructure for research. Now, everyone has access to large language models like Claude, like ChatGPT. A big problem that emerges in that context is that when these crowd workers use these language models to answer questions, researchers may no longer be studying human behavior.
Detecting if a piece of text is synthetic or not is really quite difficult. So as you probably know from interacting with these models, they really kind of seem human-like. And the way that we approached this was by taking a previous study that Manoel did where we had ground truth human data.
Back in 2018, I had an experiment with crowd workers where the purpose was to summarize text from scientific articles. The fact that we had this data from the past actually gave us a great opportunity.
Using this ground truth human data and LLM generated text for these exact same responses, we were able to train a model to basically detect for this specific task, is this data generated by a language model or is it created by a human?
In our study, we found that around 30% of crowd workers used ChatGPT in a text summarization task. But it's important to know that this is pretty much a moving target. As LLMs become more prevalent and people incorporate them into their daily lives, these numbers might go up.
We basically wanted to look at what kind of interventions can we implement to reduce the use of ChatGPT by the crowd workers. And we had a couple hypotheses here. First, we looked at hurdle strategies. And these hurdle strategies basically try to limit how easy it is to use ChatGPT to solve these tasks. One of the strategies that we used was removing copy and pasting entirely. And the second layer focused on actually asking these crowd workers. So there was 3 levels here. One is we didn't mention ChatGPT or using LLMs at all. In the second one, we used this nice request. We said, look, we really need human data for this task. And in the final category, we're a little bit more harsh in our request, saying explicitly, do not use ChatGPT. And so naturally, the one that worked the best was when you were strict and when you restricted all copy and pasting entirely. But we did find that in this setting, the quality of the responses was lower than in the more free setting.
Previously, you always had problems with data quality when it came to crowdsourcing. People could spam and just give you gibberish. But now, when LLMs give you an answer, for instance, if it's a text, it's not obvious that it's not human generated. But the point is that LLMs are not capturing the full spectrum of human attitudes and behaviors, and they are not nuanced enough.
For specifically just summarizing an abstract, we found that the extractive summarization of the large language model was better than for the human. However, if you actually look at a lot of these generations en masse, we found that they were a lot less diverse. The underlying paper that we based this technique of was studying this telephone game. How when you ask a user to summarize a text multiple times, what information is distilled along this process. And now imagine we lose this imperfection of humans and we sub it in with very homogeneous LLM results, then we no longer study the underlying human and we begin to study this model which lacks the idiosyncrasies of people.
There are things that we can do, and in the paper we showed that, for instance, you can ask people not to use LLMs, you can add hurdles, but ultimately I think that we need to reimagine crowd work and think about how we can get high quality information from people in the age where LLMs exist. For that, I think we should embrace LLMs rather than reject them and really think about, hey, how can we explore the fact that LLMs are actually quite good at simulating humans, and how can we use this to make crowd workers more productive?